We need some placards over on this side real quick. Come on, team. Y'all are beautiful down here. Look at you, look at you. All right. This is our press conference. It's not a rally. So we want everybody to listen up. We need everybody on the stage to listen up. Shh. Shh. We can fellowship a little bit later. All mics are hot. If you say anything, they pick it up. I learned that too many times.
All right.
All right. Thank you. We want to welcome all the members of the media. I'm Reverend Dr. Bishop William J. Barber II, co-chair of the National Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, standing here with Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris. And we were asked to come here by the Texas Poor People's Coalition, Texas Poor People's Movement, and their coalition partners. We're not here for fun or for fancy.
Yes, sir.
But we're here because we're in a moral fight.
Yes.
Not only for the soul of America, but in many ways, possibly the cause of the world.
Yes.
Because when you start undermining people in a democracy that says it's meant to lead the world, it can have cosmic and international implications. Maybe it's a poetic irony that on the day of the first hearings of the violent insurrection on January the 6th, that we are here today to start this march for democracy. And not to be an insurrection, but to be a moral resurrection.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe it's poetic irony that on the day after Bob Moses passes, who dared to go into Mississippi when other folk told him he shouldn't, that we are daring to march through Texas.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sometimes we've got some ugly notes about us wanting to march through Texas.
Yeah.
I won't elevate those today in this press conference, but I will say we are clear that everybody doesn't want us here.
Right.
True.
Doesn't want all Texans to stand up. But this land is our land.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And God has called us in this moment to stand,
Yes.
and stand we shall. When Governor Abbott decided to get behind the extremism regarding voting and so much other extremism, and then decided to call a special session to push the legislature to do something that really is wrong, he became the latest leader and the devotee of the political insurrection that's being mounted after the violent insurrection. See, January 6th was a violent insurrection.
Yeah.
But now what we're seeing across the country is an attempt to engage in a political insurrection.
Yes, sir.
Because what Republicans are trying to do, and let me say extremists, because I don't even call some people now Republicans, because my granddaddy was a Republican, but he was an Abraham Lincoln Republican.
Thank you, sir.
An Eisenhower Republican. There's something different here. And what we see happening here is happening all over the country.
Yeah.
And Texas is like the canary in the mine.
Right.
And that's why we're in Texas, just like Alabama was the canary in the mine in '65.
Right.
Texas is the canary in the mine in 2021.
Yes, sir.
And we must nationalize Texas
That's right.
in order to change the whole country.
My.
What they're trying to do here has already been done in 18 states, according to the Brennan Center. Over 300 bills have been passed to not only suppress the right to vote, Brother Beto, but to retrogressively suppress the right to vote. In other words, take away what 56 million people used in the past election to participate. And here we are. And what we know is that the same extremists who want to suppress and retrogress the right to vote are the same ones that block fixing your utility problems.
Look at
Come
that.
on.
Remember?
We got something to tell on this march. The same people that block 5 million people in Texas from having a living wage.
Yeah.
The same people that block health care that makes Texas one of the most uninsured state in the country.
That's right.
That's why we are not separating the issues.
That's right.
We recognize that the Poor People's Campaign and all 50 of these coalition partners that you may see on one of the banners over there, I want you to get a good picture of that, is marching to Austin this week with 5 demands. Because we declare that all of this suppression of the votes and suppression of living wages, suppression of health care, suppression of immigration reform, all of it is constitutionally inconsistent, morally indefensible, politically insidious, and economically insane. And if you think it's good, you're also historically inaccurate.
Talk to us.
Retrogression has never been good in this country. And so that's why we march for democracy as a moral resurrection.
Yes, sir.
And we have these demands for the Senate. We're not so much focused this week on the Texas legislature. We're focused on the United States Senate.
Right.
Because just like the march from Selma to Montgomery demanded federal action then, we must and demand federal action now. End the filibuster.
In the filibuster.
And on Saturday, we're going to talk about what a filibuster really is.
Yes.
It's never been used for good.
No.
Its name tells you what it is, filibuster. It's meant to bust stuff.
Yeah.
Number 2, pass the real John Lewis Act, which is the For the People's Act.
Yes, sir.
That's the bill he wrote, and that's the only game in town. And then when it's written, and media, you need to make this because some people say, well, I'm for the Voting Rights Act, but I'm not for the People's Act. There is no Voting Rights Act restoration. It hasn't been written.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Manchin and Sinema signed off, well, Manchin did, as co-sponsors of the For the People Act. But he did it when McConnell was Senate leader, and he knew it would never get to the floor. Now that it's come to the floor, all of a sudden he wants to remove his signature.
Well,
There is no Voting Rights Restoration Act passed yet. So the only John Lewis bill is the For the People's Act.
yes, sir. Help us.
And then we need to pass $15 minimum wage now.
Now.
We'll lift 32 million people. And we need to do all of this. We need to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters and their rights,
Yes.
particularly DACA students. And we need to do it all by August the 6th, the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, when a Texas Democrat who was a president signed the Voting Rights Act into being. LBJ. And we can do this. It can be done now. And any person, politician, who's not committed to this is a part of the political insurrection.
All right.
All right.
You're an accessory to the crime.
Yes, sir.
I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican.
Clear.
You're an accessory. See, we're preachers. We're going to say some things other folk can't say. You're an accessory to the crime of retrogression and political insurrection.
My.
There is no moderate position when it comes to voting rights
No, sir.
and living wages
No.
Say that.
and protecting immigrants.
Yes.
And there's no moderate position.
No.
Nobody swears on the Constitution to be moderate.
No.
Right.
Look.
No.
You don't even swear to be liberal. You don't swear to be conservative.
No.
No.
You swear to uphold,
Yes.
to establish justice,
Yes.
to promote the general welfare.
Yes.
to ensure equal protection under the law. That's no moderate position. Go tell other folk to be moderate, but when it comes to these things, we will not be moderate. We will mandate that change must be. And not only that, as I close in this opening statement, an overwhelming majority of Americans want expanded voting rights.
Yes.
They want living wages. They want universal health care. They want common sense immigration reform. But none of these policies are supported by the corporately funded extremists who have hijacked the Republican Party and even slipped into some parts of the Democratic Party. And when Senate Republicans lock arms to block debate on federal voting rights, they made clear that they are willing to run roughshod over the people.
Yes.
What they're saying is they are more comfortable with this country being moved and guided by the greed of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce than the vision of the United States Constitution. And we cannot have that.
No. No.
This bill is not Jim Crow. This is also not Jim Crow. It's James Crow
Name it.
Esquire.
Name it.
Name it.
It's not just at black people.
No. No.
When you look at the bills that are being written now in media, please look at this. It will hurt white people
Yes.
and women
Yes.
and black people and Latinos and Asians and Native and poor and low wealth people at most. The 140 million poor and low wealth people in this country, 12 million that stay in Texas, 5 million that make less than a living wage right here in Texas. This is James Crow Esquire that wants to shut down the voice of progressivism in this nation. And whoever it is, Democrat or Republican, if you stand for this kind of retrogression and suppression, you are threatening not only the existence of a party, Republican or Democrat, you are threatening the existence of the democracy and the possibility of America. Now, some so-called Democrats say they don't want to push forward, you know, even though we use 51 votes to put Supreme Court justices on the bench for life. You mean tell me we can't use 51 votes to save the life of the democracy?
Yeah.
Something wrong with that.
Yeah.
And some Democrats are saying, well, we don't want to push forward because if we pass this and the Republicans take over, they might overturn everything. Well, first of all, maybe if you pass things, they won't take over.
Talk to me.
All right.
Why do you have to have a losing attitude? Why is your attitude, if I do right, I'm going to lose? Come on, Bishop. Why don't you just do right?
Yeah.
But then more importantly, that sounds like what folk actually told the abolitionists. Don't push too hard because the slave masters might get madder.
There you go. There you go.
Or they told LBJ that. Don't you sign that. Because if you sign that, then the extremists are going to get, but he did what was right.
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 And the right time to do right is right now.
That's right.
The Poor People's Campaign and our allies in Texas are clear that this is not a time for compromise. It's a time to end the filibuster. It's a time to fully pass every provision of the Voting Rights Act. Excuse me, of the For the People Act. It's time to be prepared to pass the Voting Rights Act Restoration Act when it is ready. It's time to pass $15 minimum wage.
Yes.
And it's time to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters. And it's time to do it right now.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't, we fail those who will come after. And if we do not stand and demand now, then we are unworthy of the inheritance of Sister Ames from Georgetown,
Mama.
a white lady who stood against the Klan in the 1930s. We are unworthy of the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer and Dr. King
Yes.
and Rabbi Heschel
Right.
and Rosa Parks
Yeah.
and William Lloyd Garrison, the white evangelical in the 1800s that was an abolitionist, and Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
We are unworthy of those 3 young men, one black, one Jew, one white, who were killed down in Mississippi. We are unworthy of the legacy of Bob Moses. We are unworthy of all of the people that came together to push this nation forward. And they did it with less.
Yes, sir.
They did more with less we will not do less with more. We have more than they had, and we will fight harder
That's right.
in this moment.
That's right.
But going backwards is non-negotiable.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
At this time, I'm going to ask our three tri-chairs to come. Each person will come and for a minute and a half and make remarks, and then we'll take questions from the media. So at this time, Stephanie, and Danita will come. And because she's moved to Texas recently, Danielle, and she has roots in Mississippi, we're going to ask her to come as well with at least a 1-minute comment. Would you all come at this time? Let me stand up. Y'all come. Can they get up?
Come on.
Thank you all for being here today. I am Danita Jones, a co-chair of the Texas Poor People's Campaign and also an impacted person. We are here to announce that a moral reckoning is upon Texas. We are here joining across racial, gender, and economic lines to say we are tired, we are worn, but we are not weak. Understand that the good trouble that would take place this week in Texas is only the beginning.
Yes.
Understand that we are here to stay. Understand that our demands will be heard. Understand that now is the time.
Yeah.
We are the people. We demand to be heard. We demand a fair democracy. We're going forward together
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and not one step back.
Right.
I have too much at stake here. I'm the mother of 5. And to tell my 5 children that 2 of you can go get your checkup and the other 3 will have to wait till next payday is unacceptable. That should not be.
Right.
To have my home turned into an impromptu shower station for our neighbors during the snowstorm should not have taken place.
That's right.
To go 3 weeks without clean water is not acceptable. To go unheard is not acceptable. So hear this. We are here, we are mighty, and we will stand strong with everyone here in this fusion movement.
That's right.
If you do not have time to stand strong, I ask you in all humbleness, get out my way.
All right. All right. Say that.
Because I am not here to play.
That's right.
I am here to do what's right for my fellow Texans, for my children, my son that stands here. I am here, and I am not going anywhere. I don't have them on, but these boots I have are made for walking.
Come on. Come on. Yeah.
And I'm going to walk
Yeah.
all the way to the Capitol
Yeah.
to have my voice heard.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Stephanie.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Stephanie Wilkins. I am a United Methodist deacon, and I'm also a part of the Texas Poor People's Campaign. I have watched in my community people in food deserts. I have watched people who are looking for employment, looking for a way to survive, not have what they need because they are the working poor. They're either the poor or the unemployed. I have been on many phone calls when people are distressed because they don't know how they're going to make it, how they're going to live, how they're going to pay their bills. Then we have the pandemic hit, and it hurt a lot of us, but it hurt the poor and the unemployed even more so. And then on top of that, you have a situation with a grid. We didn't even know that we were not a part of anybody else's grid. And we're in some sub-freezing temperatures. It hit us all. It hit us no matter age, status, race, gender, it didn't matter. And now you're going to tell us somehow that we need to wait on you while you board a plane for warmer climates? That ain't right. Then you want to suppress our vote, our voice? Instead of doing that, why don't you work on fixing that grid? Stop suppressing our voice, our vote. Everybody has a right to live. Everybody has a right to a living wage. Everybody has a right.
That's right.
Everybody has a right. So we're going to march. Our purpose is clear. We may be tired, but we're not going to give up. We're frustrated. You're doing all kinds of things, all kind of trickery, but we're not going to stop. We're going to march because we're on the side of right. Justice is on our side. What side are you on?
On the people's side.
What side are you on?
On the people's side.
What side are you on?
On the people's side.
Thank you.
Good word. Good word.
Stephanie, you next, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Swanson. I'm a tri-chair of the Texas Poor People's Campaign. I'm going to keep mine a little shorter. This march is a proud moment for our state and for our community. We are honored to walk alongside one another, people from all faiths, creeds, races, and religions. We hope to send a very clear message to Congress that these voter suppression bills that are being passed in states across the nation have a deeper meaning than just the franchise. This voter suppression is preventing Texans from accessing health care. They're preventing them from accessing affordable housing, living wages, and decent schools. This voter suppression is actually a form of economic oppression that has kept 12.6 million Texans in low wealth and poverty, and that was before the pandemic. And when the governor vetoed the legislator's budget, he sent a clear message across the state that he cares more about the culture wars than he does about the health and well-being of his constituents. These voter suppression bills cannot be stopped at the state level. We must have federal action to break down these barriers to the ballot box. We must have federal action now so we can shift the moral narrative and improve the lives of all Texans.
That's right. Thank you.
Hello, Texans. Hello. My name is Danielle Holmes. I'm national organizer with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. All right. And as the saying goes, we only get what we're organized to take. And we have been organizing across this country. And we're going to demand, and not only demand, but take back everything that the enemy has stolen from us. I'm from Mississippi, where the cliche is the Bible Belt state. Mississippi is the belly of the beast. See, the rights that you all are fighting for here in Texas, we don't have those rights. So we don't have a fight to fight. We have the bare minimum voting rights. You all are fighting to retain the rights. But I've always had a vision, even before coming to the Poor People's Campaign, of organizing the South.
That's right.
And I've studied the Southern strategy. And what has happened now is that they have nationalized the Southern strategy.
That's right.
So now it's time for us to nationalize our movement and organize in every state in this country, march across this country, and we don't stop until we win.
That's right.
We demand that organizations, social justice organizations, I'm a troublemaker, so I may say some things that my leaders won't say. But I'm here to tell you personally that I'm going to challenge every organization that says that look like us, say that they represent the people, but are going behind back doors, compromising and making deals. Not only must we challenge lawmakers that are blocking us, but we must challenge every organization that does not stand on the side of right and in the best interest of our people. We're here to fight, and we're going to fight like hell.
We thank God for our 3 tri-chairs, our national co-chairs, and ain't much she gonna say that I won't say and we won't say. Because the truth is just the truth.
Yes, sir.
And we want the media to get this. If you notice how we're not just talking about the voting, we're connecting the dots. All week long, we're gonna connect it. Dr. King connected that at the end of the Selma to Montgomery March, he said that the great fear of the Southern aristocracy and the greedy was when the Negro masses and the white masses joined together and vote in ways that changed the economic architecture of the country.
Yes, sir.
He said that's why there was such an issue with the Voting Rights Act, and that's why there was such an issue with suppression. It's not just about skin color, it's about power
Yes, sir.
and money
Yes.
and who gets what, when, and where. And we're going to be very clear about that. That is why we have no compromise in the filibuster. Pass the full provisions of the For the People's Act. When the Voting Rights Act is ready, restore it, pass 15, and protect our brothers, immigrant brothers and sisters. Do it now. It's a shame and disgrace that in a week we'll be 56 years after the Voting Rights Act of 65, and we got less voting rights today than we had August 6, 1965. Somebody say that's a shame and a disgrace. Now we've got some Latinos, young people, who want to make sure that they're clear on how we're united. We want to invite them to come up. And those of you that are in the back, if you want to come on around, I know it's warm, but you want to join us and get in a little tan, come on around so the cameras can see you too. Come on, young folk, where are they? Let's give them a big hand. Are they here?
Right behind you.
Come on. Yeah.
Come on, all of them together, yeah. Slide over though, yeah. So you got room. Come on, bro. Let's get done. Remember, lean into the mic when you're talking, all right? Lean into the mic when you're talking.
Tell us the truth, young lady.
You got it. Yeah. You got it. Slow and loud.
Hi, my name is Sienna, and voting rights matters to me because my family is considered lower class, so taking away our voting rights is taking away our voice.
Be loud, Sienna. Be loud. Tell them.
It's already hard enough to vote, and making it harder is even worse. My stepdad has to work a hard job, and my mom has to take care of her 2 kids at home, which makes it harder to vote, meaning 2 less votes and 2 less opinions.
Wow. Thank you, young lady.
Thank you. Let's go, Brian. Be loud, Brian. Be loud.
Say it loud.
What's that? I just gotta say that the government should listen to everybody, regardless of race, citizenship, and how much money they have. I'm only 13, but I'm here today because I want to create the opportunities for my people.
Good people.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Brian.
Huh?
Brian.
Ryan, I want you to do me a favor. Because I get tired sometimes when we ask our Latino brothers and sisters to speak in English. Because they smarter than us. They can speak in 2, 3 languages.
That's right.
So can you say that in your own tongue?
Not right now.
You not right now?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, Lee
Okay.
can do it.
Lee can do it. How about that? I want the world to hear it in your own tongue.
Beautiful.
Come on.
El gobierno debería escucharnos.
There you go.
Sin embargo, la raza.
Si tienes papeles.
Yeah, help him out.
Si tienes papeles.
No, this.
¿Cuánto dinero que tiene?
Citizenship.
Si tiene, es ciudadano o no.
Big words, they're hard. Let's let him get it together.
¿Cómo se dice citizenship? Es ciudadano. Citizenship. Ciudadanía.
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 Be loud, yo, be loud.
Ciudadanía y cuánto dinero traigas. Yo nomás tengo 13, pero yo estoy aquí hoy porque yo quiero crear las oportunidades para mi persona.
Yes, sir. Not yours. Do yours. You can do yours however you want to.
I'm confused. I'm confused because me and my friends have family in Mexico, and us three, we want to see them, but some of us, we don't have papers. And even though many of us pay taxes and are good citizens,
That's right. Take your time, brother.
they're still trying to suppress our voices.
I'm confused too. We all are confused. But we getting ready to address the confusion. Give these young folk a big hand. Come on. And welcome Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris. I'm the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and director of the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary. I come before you this afternoon as a granddaughter of undocumented immigrants, a proud daughter of social justice fighters, a mother of public schools children, someone who has personally experienced poverty, homelessness, and low wages, and a friend and pastor to untold numbers of poor and low-wealth people of all races, creeds, and from all places. And it is in all of these roles that I stand before you to say, our democracy is in peril.
Yes, it is.
Our country is in need of and I'm honored to be here in Texas, where the people are leading the way.
Thank you.
I hear the cry of the prophet Isaiah here in Texas, woe to you who legislate evil, who deprive the poor of their rights, making women and homeless children their prey. In this time, when our voting rights, when economic justice is being denied, we must call out the immoral obstructionism of Congress. We must demand that the U.S. Senate end the filibuster, pass all provisions of the For the People Act, fully restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act, raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, and fully protect the rights and dignity of all 11 million undocumented people. We are all too aware that the extremist politicians who are suppressing and stealing our ability to vote are the same politicians who deny living wages, refuse to expand health care, exploit immigrants and LGBTQ plus people and women, and so we march. We march for our children. We march for our elders. Yes. We march for our families and our partners and our communities. We march because it is immoral and wrong to take away our voting rights and to steal the promise of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness from absolutely everyone. That's true. We march so that we can move, as we say in our movement, forward together and not one step back. So tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. from this very church, we will march 27 miles from here in Georgetown to the state capitol in Austin. On Saturday morning, 151 cars will process from this town to the state capitol in honor of 151 years since the 15th Amendment.
Thank you.
We thank Texas for leading the way. We know that somebody's been hurting our people. It's gone on for far too long, but we won't be silent anymore.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's pray. Keep praying. We're just trying to model being safe up here.
Yes, sir.
We all of us, even before we came, we got tested and we'll test it again, just modeling. Now we start tomorrow. We won't do all 27 miles tomorrow because we're being COVID safe. So we'll do a portion starting at 7 o'clock and then a portion each day. And Reverend Dr. Liz is right. There will be 151 cars, but there's one addition we want the media to know. There's going to be a hearse in front of them. And in that hearse and on that hearse and in that casket and on that casket will be copies of all of the bills trying to bury voting rights and bury living wages and bury immigration reform and bury the Voting Rights Act and bury the For the People's Act. And I had an inspiration today, Danielle and Stephanie. I don't know how we're going to get this, but I'm talking to the artists now. I was coming in last night, late, about 2 o'clock, flew in over the Capitol. It was so beautiful. And I said, how can a place so beautiful have so many folk doing ugly things in it? It just didn't seem right. And I closed my eyes, and I saw somebody on the stage Saturday when the hearse gets to the state capitol and the casket is taken out, somebody laying on the stage in the symbol of death with the American flag over them. We need a dancer. We need a liturgical expert that will dance for us resurrection.
Yes, sir.
Huh? I don't know how. Y'all artists gonna have to, y'all take that now. We need somebody that can actually lay in the position of death, but then get up. And when they get up, the flag starts getting up. I don't even know what song's supposed to go with that, but there got to be a song that goes with that, because we are going to be the moral resurrection. Preachers are going to come now because filibuster is sin. You can write that, media. If you want to question me, I'm a theologian. I'll talk to you about it. I know it's sin. Not only Isaiah 10, but Matthew 23:23, when Jesus said, woe unto those who go through all the motions of religion, but then they leave undone. Translation, then they filibuster.
Look, got it?
Justice.
Yes, sir.
And mercy. Huh? Yeah, we're going to take on this Christian nationalism down here too. This Christian nationalism in Texas, this so-called white evangelism that has a whole lot to say about what God says so little and so little to say about what God says so much. And so I want to ask these three preachers to come. My dear friend who opened up his church, I've just met him, but it feels like a brother, the Methodist Church on last Sunday. My dear brother who opened up his church that same Sunday morning. And who else did we have here? It was one, and the pastor of this congregation. I want them, you all know them, they're going to introduce themselves to you, and they're going to come and say why the church is marching and why they're calling people of faith. We also have rabbis that'll be marching, and Hindus and Sikhs and people of all faith, and even people that don't believe in a particular religion, but they believe in the moral arc of the universe. You are all welcome. Come at this time.
Thank you, Bishop. There was a time when I did not want to be a Christian because all I saw was people talking about Christ but doing nothing related to love. There was a time when I was just bored because I heard all the talk but I saw no action. Jesus Christ had the same kind of a problem with the church. He went back to the church in which he was raised as a child, the synagogue, and he came to them and they thought he was cute and opened the Bible for him to look at the scroll, and he opened it up to the place where it said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he gave me a purpose for being here. He's anointed me to preach good news to the poor, release to the captives, and set the prisoners free. In other words, Jesus said, enough of that chit-chat, talk. It's time for us to do something. So I'm just here today to support the bishop and those who are here in this campaign, because it's time for those of us who claim to be Christians to do Christ-like stuff.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Pastor. Bless your heart.
Welcome to you today to this holy ground. I am the temporary steward in this place of this holy ground. I am Pastor Sherilyn Browning, and together we care for this place with the folks of Christ Lutheran Church, and I'm glad to be with you standing today on this holy ground. If we were here together, say 265 million years ago, we would be underwater. And in this Texas heat, that sounds pretty good right now, I'm betting. And yet, when the dry land emerged from the water and people started to gather in family groups near the river like San Gabriel, and they started to form communities, they grew into tribes that we did not know their names. And now we have learned some of their names in our near history, the ones that were called the Humanos. I love them because it reminds me of human. And then the Tonkawa, and then the Cuiltican, and after them the Lipan Apache, and then the Comanche. And then immigrants came from a long way away and took this land for themselves. Everyone that has lived here and worked here on this holy ground believes they are building an abundant life for their community. And sometimes it's hard to work together to do that. Yeah. But it is vital for us and for this holy ground that we work together. Right. For the people that are on the margins, for the people that are oppressed, for the poor folks. We must work for the most vulnerable among us so that all of us may have abundant life. Yes. So I welcome you today to this holy ground, and I invite you tomorrow to take that holy ground and carry it all the way in your footsteps to the Capitol. God bless you, and welcome to Christ Lutheran Church.
Thank you, my dear sister. Thank you. Thank you. Pastor.
I am Pastor Joseph Parker, David Chapel Baptist Church in Austin, and we're glad to be here today. Leo Tolstoy said in his book War and Peace, raised a question actually. He said, how can one be well when he suffers morally?
Help us.
As a Baptist preacher, black Baptist preacher, I close with this. I just stopped by to say, how can Central Texas, Austin, and America believe it is well when it is suffering so morally?
It's an amazing thing what a black Baptist preacher can say in 2 sentences. You need to know his father was a comrade of Dr. King. Yes. His father and I, we had a conversation on the phone, marched with Dr. King. He has a letter to his father from Dr. King in Montgomery, Birmingham. And so we're honored to have all of these clergy and so many more. All the clergy, raise your hands. See, look around. All the clergy. All the people that don't necessarily have a religion faith, but you believe in the moral arc of the universe and doing right, raise your hand. We can, in fact, as the pastor said, work together. But we also, in this moment, have to know that holiness and unholiness can't be in the same room. Somebody got to get redeemed. Either the holy got to become unholy, or the unholy has to become holy. Yes, sir. Or the holy just has to hold its position and do what's right and hope that the unholy changes. Help us. And it's kind of like that with these issues we're facing. Because there are people who tell us, well, if y'all could just compromise. Right. Let me tell you about the compromise. First of all, that's a trick of power and racism. Y'all remember the 3/5 compromise? Yep. Yes, unfortunately. Every compromise is all, the folk that normally want to compromise, here's the problem. They don't come with the promise. No promise. See, if you come to the table with the same promise, we're going to fix this. We believe there's a problem. Then we can compromise. But if I'm at the table and you're suppressing my vote and you don't even believe that suppressing the vote is happening, then there's no compromise there. Because if you compromise, then it's capitulation. In that moment, you got to have courage to challenge and to work for change. And so one other person that's coming before Brother Beto, and then we'll take questions. He's a bishop, and he's with the Rainbow Coalition. He's going to represent all the various groups that are coming, supporting. Yesterday, we did 27 sit-ins in 27 states. And I want the media to hear this. We sat in Democratic offices and Republican. Our movement is not partisan, but it's deeply political. Huh? That's what makes it moral. It doesn't matter to us if you're Democrat or Republican. What matters on us is right. And I detest folk sometimes who say, well, you can't say what's right. Well, if you can't say what's right, why do you swear to uphold the Constitution?
No. Nope, sir.
Some things are just right. It ain't nothing about liberal versus conservative. It's about right versus wrong. If you undermine my equal protection under the law, that's just wrong. It ain't a little wrong. It ain't a white lie. It's just wrong. And we've got to have some courage in this moment. There's been too much capitulation when it comes to doing what's right. And you know who always gets the short end of the stick when it's capitulation? Poor and low-wealth folk of every race, creed, and color. Bishop, would you come introduce yourself to the people and say what you have to say on behalf of all the folk that are coming? Then Brother Beto, our dear friend, will come. Then we'll take questions from the media.
Yes, please. Let's give it up for Bishop William Barber and the Poor People's Campaign.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Liz Theo Harris. Come on, make some noise for them. Come on, make some noise for them. Texas is alive. I bring you greetings. I'm Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. On yesterday, Bishop William Barber and Reverend Jesse Jackson sat in at Senator Sinema's office. Reverend Jackson was willing to be arrested. He's free tonight and on his way to Austin, Texas, first thing in the morning, to join us in this 27-mile trek. And I want to thank all of the organizations. There are so many of them: SEIU, Transformative Justice, Code Pink, the Red Letter Christians, so many organizations who are joining this fight because it's the right time for a fight like this. Yes. And this is a fight that we can win. Right. I said, this is a fight that we can win. Howard Thurman said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Several weeks ago, when Bishop Barber got this inspiration of doing this march, I think I was the first one to say that Rainbow Push is marching every step of the way on the front line of this fight to end the filibuster, to pass every provision of the For the People's Act, and give working class people a living wage. If you're in favor of that, make some noise out here on these holy grounds. You know, the importance of this fight is how we respond and not how we react. And sometimes we fail to realize that when things are at their worst, God is at his best. Yes, he is. In our Holy Writ is a story of a man named Lazarus. And Dr. Liz, they thought that Jesus was too late. But one of the things we learn is never too late to show up. And we want Austin to know, and we want Georgetown to know, and we want Round Rock to know it's not too late to show up, and it's not too late for a moral resurrection all over this country. Lazarus represents the unemployed. He represents the no income. He represents the LGBTQ. He represents people who want a fair chance, and once and for all, he represents people who want a fair democracy. This is our land. This is our country, and we're getting ready to take it back. If you're in agreement with us, join us on tomorrow. The march is on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Never too late.
I told you, these preachers gave me 5 sermons in 2 minutes. That's what I love about them. I just thought about Lazarus was rejected. That's what happened when they throw you in the grave, rejected. But the rejected have to lead the revival.
Look.
And as you said, it's never too late to show up. It's never too late to show out. And it's never too late to shout.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to be shouting for justice all the way. Listen, tomorrow at 7 o'clock a.m., you have to be here. We got nurses, temp check, masses. In order to march with us, you've got to have proof for the march that you've been vaccinated. We got to keep folks safe, amen? And good feet, somebody said, and wear good shoes and make sure all of those things. Then on Saturday, everybody's invited, but we're asking everybody to mask up. And we're asking everybody to stay COVID safe. We're not going to be in Austin all day. We're not going to have a rally to the point people forget what they're rallying about.
Talk, sir.
We're going to be surgical and serious. We're going to be, and I'm emceeing, so we're going to be surgical and serious, right? Because that's what this is about. We can't get the message. We told everybody, nobody's ego is greater than the message. The message, the message, the message is what's most important. And so we also had, when we said this, we've been in this for over a month. Poor People's Campaign announced that we didn't need one action. We needed a season of moral action. And over there again, meet all of the persons. I want you to get a good clip of that, show people it's not one in one group. That we started on the 12th, the 23rd of June, then the 12th. Then last week, over 100 women were arrested from 42 states in the capital. This week in 27 states. Austin this week. The capital of Georgetown-to-Austin this week, then Austin. Then on Monday, 1,000 clergy and 1,000 workers, perhaps, that are coming together in Washington, D.C. for another action. Yeah. And then the 6th happens. And if we win anyway, if by the 6th they act, we're going to shout hallelujah. Hallelujah. If they don't act by the 6th, we're going to intensify and embolden our agitation. But either way, as they say in the young folks say, it's on, baby. It's on. And Brother Beto knows it's on because he's been going all over this state. He's my brother beloved. And somebody said, well, how can Brother Beto come? Because he's not an elected official. See, we don't let elected officials come on the stage if they're currently elected. He ran for office, but now he is walking in that great tradition of a moral leader. I don't know what he'll be called to do in the future, but right now, he's moving all over the state and the country saying, we've got one opportunity to do this, and we've got to make it right now. I love him. Reverend Jackson was his father worked with Reverend Jackson back in the day. What I learned about Brother Beto, he ain't scared. He'll say what need to be said. And when you're going to go out on a limb, make sure you go out there with somebody going to stay with you. Brother Beto, would you come? Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Reverend Theo Harris and Bishop Barber, the Poor People's Campaign of Texas, all these great women and men of faith, and those who've come together under this beautiful sky today. I want to thank all of you for making this moment possible and allowing us to make the most of it. It's true that Texas has produced laws which make this the hardest state in the nation, bar none, in which to vote. It also happens to be true that the current Republican leadership, from every statewide official to the majorities in both chambers of our state legislature, have introduced legislation that would make it even tougher, but not just on anyone. Those Texans with a disability, the very young, the very old, the working poor, black and brown, and other minorities in Texas are targeted for voter suppression and intimidation, as they always have been in this state. I want you to know that. But I also want you to know this. This state also produced a man whose name you may or may not know, Dr. Lawrence Nixon.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Born and raised in Marshall, Texas, made his way all the way across to the other end of the state, my hometown of El Paso, and in 1910 started the first chapter of the NAACP in the state of Texas. Right. And when in 1923, the Texas legislature, the predecessors of our current majority, in all their wisdom, passed what was known as the all-white Democratic primary, which meant that if you were a person of color, if you were black or brown in the state of Texas, you could not vote. The next year, actually 97 years ago this week, Dr. Lawrence Nixon walks into fire station number 5, his typical polling place in El Paso, and tries to vote. And the election judge before him says, Dr. Nixon, you know I can't let you vote. And Dr. Nixon said, I know you can't, but I've got to try. And try he did for the next 20 years. he fought this battle. He took it to the Supreme Court and won not once, but twice. And along with Lonnie Smith of the 5th Ward of Houston, Texas, they brought down the all-white Democratic primary in 1944. It took them 20 years, but they never gave up. They never gave in. They fought that fight and they won it. This state, as Bishop Barber said, produced Lyndon Baines Johnson, who listened to the people of this country. When Dr. King and Andrew Young went to visit him after the passage of the Civil Rights Act and demanded that he pass a Voting Rights Act, Johnson is alleged to have said, "Gentlemen, I'd love to, but I just do not have the power. I cannot compel those members of Congress to vote for this. We'll never overcome the filibuster." And upon leaving, Dr. King turned to Ambassador Young and said, "We've got to go out there and find this man some power." And over the course of the coming months, that's exactly what they did. Marches, moral ones, just like the one that will be led from Georgetown tomorrow all over this country, culminating on the 7th of March, 1965, John Lewis marching from Selma to Montgomery over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, nearly losing his life in the process. And it's not 8 days later, but LBJ has convened a joint session of Congress, and he grounds that speech to urge them to pass the right to vote in America in what John Lewis had just done in Selma, Alabama. Men and women of the Senate and the Congress, he said, all they're doing is marching for the right to vote, and you have the power to confer it. What will you do? And it was 56 years ago, the 6th of August coming up, that he was able to sign that law and ensure that we had a multiracial democracy in America going forward.
That's right, David.
As Bishop Barber said, we have inherited their struggle, their leadership, their service, and their sacrifice. What we do with that will define us and this country forevermore, because Texas has not only produced the men and women that I've told you about, it has produced the people who are here right now. It has produced those brave state legislators who are in Washington, D.C., who left their families, who left their posts, who left their homes and face arrest when they come back, not because it's good for them, but because it's good for all of us. And I know that John Busey and James Tallarico, 2 state reps who represent Williamson County, are here in spirit with us right now as they fight the good fight in Washington, D.C. So look, I close with this. In a government, if it truly is of, by, and for the people, in this great democracy, there are no sidelines. There are no grandstands. There's no paying witness to what's happening right now. You are in this fight, or all of us will be out of it. So I encourage you to join us on this march, and most importantly, be with us in front of the state capitol this Saturday, 10 a.m. Will you join us? All right. Good to be with you. Thank you, Bishop Barber.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Brother Beto, you don't even know in some ways how prophetic you were, because one of the people that's going to be marching may come down is the great nephew of Amelia Boynton. Amelia Boynton, who was beat on the bridge. Amelia Boynton and the Dallas County Voters League that was organizing 40 years before John Lewis and King and Snick ever got there. When they were at the March on Washington, they were down there with Diane Nash organizing in Selma. In fact, the only reason the March on Washington worked is because they had 200 cities where actions were going on like this. Look. We don't even know what we're doing is going to produce. But we know that a seed cast in good soil can always produce more. This is a seed. This is a sign. What we're doing is full of substance. And tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And then we march at 9, I think, to the state capitol on Saturday. With those 8, well, the cars leave here at 8, that's what I understand. But you'll hear more about it. The cars will leave from Georgetown 151, representing that this is the 170th year since the Constitution was amended, fixed, to say that no state has the right to deny or abridge. Not just deny, but abridge. And anytime you undermine same-day registration, and undermine early voting, and undermine drop box, and undermine getting allowing natives to vote, you are abridging. And the right to vote is to bridge to all the other policies. Yes, it is. That's why you can't say you're going to fix infrastructure and fix physical bridges while you let somebody tear down the bridge of our democracy. It's not either or, it's both and. Always and all the time. So we want to know, are there any questions from members of the media? We've been a little bit long, but see, when you organize broad, you got to take time to hear from all the voices. We want to make sure there's no mistake about what we're doing. Many members of the media? If there aren't any questions from the members, well, yes. May you say who you with? Yes, ma'am. We're going to be marching down the service road. When you start here, we will have accompaniment, and there will be, it starts, I said, at 7, and then it'll be a portion each day, and then we'll stop, and then we'll come back to that same place the next morning. Now, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd have put out tents outside and just stayed outside. But our advisors, our public health advisors, told us, spoke to us against that. And then we'll stop just before we get into Austin on Friday night, Friday morning, Friday midday. And then Saturday morning from the AFL-CIO building, parking lot and street, we will then march to the state capitol. And another thing for logistics, if you're like me and you have some kind of personal challenge, I have crippling ankylosing spondylitis. I've been battling 40 years that some people said I'd never walk again, but they didn't talk to God. But if you can only do a portion, then ask somebody to be your legs the rest of the way. And I'm going to be asking in the morning, I'm going to ask somebody to volunteer their legs to me. And I guarantee you, if I'm not able to make it, while you're marching, we're going to be working and getting more people here and bringing more people in and making sure that our message is clear. But you're welcome, even if you're differently abled, because even these laws that they're passing, if you look deep at them, they will hurt the differently abled people, regardless of your race, your creed, or your color. Is that helpful, my sister? Is there one other media? Yes. Okay, all right. Now, let me say something that Reverend just asked me to remind us. And the media, we want you to keep this in mind. Why is it that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is applauding the Republicans and the Democrats that are using the filibuster to block the For the People's Act, the Restoration of the Voting Rights Act, and $15 minimum wage? Think about that question. Why are they even in it if it's not about money? If it's not about hurting the poor and helping the greedy? You gotta factor that in. This is not just a binary black versus white, Republican versus black folk. That's not what this is, what we see going on. This is about pure power and greed. Look at this audience. Look at this audience. Are everybody here recognized? Let me ask you a question, and I'm going to go to your question. How many white people are out here because you see this as a threat to your democracy, not just because you're altruistic toward black people? You see those hands? They ain't out here just, well, let's go help the black people. This is not, we don't need altruism right now. That's not what we need. We don't, oh, let's go. No. This is not that. That was 65. This is now. This is an attempt to steal this democracy through political insurrection and political coup d'etat inside of legislation without weapons, but weaponizing public policy. That's what we're dealing with. And that's why there's no middle ground and no capitulation. Yes, sir. Who you with? Yes, sir. Well, we didn't say that. We never put a number. I don't know who put that out. We don't put a number at all because we believe one person's constitutional right is one too many. What we hope is that people will show up. As many as want to can come. Some people can't come by that. And plus, we're going to be live streaming. And let me say about the Poor People's Campaign. The last event we had 2 million people online. In 2020, we had 2.7 million people. So we can't put a number on who's going to come. Because we're going to be live streaming. We're going to be cross-posting. We're going to, during the march this week, we're going to have people calling Senate offices all over the country. But what we say is COVID say everybody's welcome to come. Yes, bring your mask, stay apart, 6 feet apart. If you can't come, then join us online. Because what we don't want to do, and we wouldn't have put out a number, because we don't put out a number and then somebody says, oh, you got 909,999. The fact of the matter is 70% plus, in some places 80% of the American public wants the things we're fighting for. And in West Virginia, 79% of all the West Virginians, not Democrats, 79% of all West Virginians believe Manchin is wrong, and the same is true in Arizona and all across this nation. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir. Say that again. It's a Selma-like in the sense that it's connecting voting rights and economic injustice, in the sense that Selma called all people, regardless of their race, creed, and their color, to stand up. And thirdly, in the sense that the Selma March said, you can't litigate your way out of this state by state. You can't simply mobilize more people to the polls state by state. You must have federal action. So that's the symbolism, that we're calling for federal actions to stop what's happening in these state legislatures. Because the day that the For the People's Act is passed, everything that the Texas legislature is doing becomes illegal. And all the other 18 states, that's the point. The day that 15 is passed, 32 million Americans raise up out of poverty and low wealth to living wages. The day the Voting Rights Act is restored, no law can be passed in states without having to be pre-clearance to check them first to see how they impact based on race and class. That's the comparison. This march is saying we have to have federal action. Now, in terms of numbers, it may not be because of COVID. They didn't have COVID back then. But we don't know. We believe we're going to have lots and lots of people. But this is what I would say finally to the media. Here's the thing you got to also recognize. Back then, they didn't have TikTok. They didn't have Instagram. They didn't have Facebook. What else? Talk to me, somebody. They didn't have YouTube. What else? They didn't have Twitter. They didn't have Instagram. And they did more with less. Harriet Tubman got 700 people out of slavery, and she never had Instagram. She never had media. Dr. King organized 25,000 people at the end of the Selma March, but it didn't start with but 200 people. They didn't have YouTube. We do. We have more, so we're going to do more with less. So you have to count who comes and who tweets, who comes and who's on social media, who comes and who TikToks, who comes and who's in the chat room, who comes and follows us on live stream, because that's the number that's saying we cannot afford to allow this to continue. Is that right, my brothers and sisters? Y'all shout forward together, not one step back. Y'all shout forward together, not one step back. Y'all shout forward together, not one step back. Y'all shout in the filibuster right now. Pass the real John Lewis bill, the For the People Act, all provisions right now. When it's ready, pass the Voting Rights Act, restoration, restore pre-clearance for states all over the country, especially in the South. Pass immigration reform. Since Texas was first Mexico, stop treating the Mexicans like they aren't Americans too. They just South Americans. And they were here before us. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. Pass 15 minimum wage, living wage, right now, right now, right now. Because until you do, we're going to march right now. We're going to stand right now. We're going to fight right now. And we're never going to quit, because there is the fierce urgency of right now. God bless you. Get in the shade if you can. Theo musicologists, come on and drop 2 songs for us right quick. Then we're going to do a litany from the clergy, and we're going to be out of here for the most part. Yeah. Come on, Joe. Where's Brother Joe?
He's going to say something first. He's
Okay.
going to speak to the press conference.
Okay.
Then we can do the litany, or we can do Tebow.
Lift this up. We're going to have Brother Joe to say something, and you're going to give us a song, Brother Joe?
I'm here.
Brother Joe going to give us a song. Give him a hand. And then we're going to have our brother on the drums. Then Then we're going to have a combined clergy litany to sanctify what we're doing. And then we're going to almost be out of here so we can go get some rest and be ready for in the morning. Come on, Brother Joe.
As Brother Joe comes, for those who have been in the shade, if you want to come help out and relieve someone up here, you're welcome to come up. And especially, we're going to need some song leaders. You don't have to be able to sing. You just have to be willing. So come on up. If you've been in the shade, make sure you get water if you need it as well, and take a seat if you need it. Brother Joe Hernandez, thank you so much for being here. And come on up on the stage, folks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight, Reverend. Thank you, sir. I have a message for my brothers and sisters, los latinos hispanos. Y el mensaje es que tienen que salir a marchar, tienen que salir a pelear, tienen que salir a luchar. Estamos cansados. Ya basta de que nos tratan de la manera que nos tratan en este estado. Sabemos que el estado de Texas es el estado más racista en América. So please, join the march and do any and everything that you can and you have to do to win this fight. This song is from 1955. I grew up singing it as a kid. I believed in the lyrics then. I believe in the lyrics now. It was by Gene Ellison. You can make it if you try. You can make it if you try. You can make it if you try. Oh, yes, you can make it if you try. Sometimes we have to cry. Sometimes you want to lie. We got to live on till we die. Oh, yes, you can make it if you try. If somebody treats you wrong, don't go around singing the blues. Remember, my friend, everybody can't win. Somebody's got to lose. But you can make it if you try. We can make it if we try. We can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can make it if we try. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's give it up, give it up. Thank you, Brother Hernandez, for leading us today. We're going to need a mic for you, or you going to come up? Can I take it to you? I'll take it to you. Is that going to work, Brother Romeo? While we get some music, we are inviting folks to come on up, especially if you're going to be marching tomorrow. It's not going to work. Okay. Okay, yeah. So we're going to get another mic. We're going for Tebow to lead us. If you are a clergy member who has a part to play in the litany, if you would come on up. We're going to go right into that right after this. So come on up if you're one of those clergy members. This is not golf. So this is like tennis. So we're going to talk, you're going to talk back. It's not like we're going to talk and just wonder where it goes. You're going to let us know it lands. All right? So as Tebow gets ready and as the clergy who are going to help with this litany, and especially if you're marching tomorrow, we're going to have a closing where we're going to be blessing the marchers. So we're going to want all the marchers to come up here so we can close out this evening in just the next 20 minutes or so. And then we'll be on our way to get some rest for our march tomorrow. I'd just say a correction for the marchers tomorrow. We will be meeting here at 6 a.m. to get instructions, to get prayer, to get some food and refreshments, and we'll be leaving and marching at 7 a.m. sharp. So come here early. You have to register to be a part of the march. We have a limit based on COVID and security of the number of marchers. So please come for that at 6 a.m. And that'll be each day at the new location. We'll be sending that out. We're not going to release the route publicly for security reasons right now, but once you're here, we'll let you know. All right, you ready, Tebow? Yeah. I can't bring this. You gonna stay up here? Awesome. Yeah. Give it up.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. In the great tradition of the Poor People's Campaign, we sing. We sing together. We lift our voices in praise to the Great Spirit, the ancestors above, to the energy that you name. And we're going to do that at this time. We're going to lead you all in song. Will you join us? Will you join us in song, everyone? Yeah? I'm Elizabeth, Texas. I'm a Poor People's Campaign member from San Antonio, Texas. And I'm so grateful to be here and to be able to lift up and to send us off for change, for radical change that we desperately, desperately need. So the first song is This Little Light of Mine. All right? We're going to change it up some.
So I want folks behind the stage that we don't see this as different from the program, right? The music is central to the movement. We wouldn't have a movement without music. So everyone that's behind the stage, if you're not doing some specific task, please come to the front, come join us. The program is still continued. If we can't listen to one another, everyone behind the stage, hello, can y'all hear me? All right, if we can't listen to one another, why do we expect them to listen to us? So we got to listen to each other. We got to be in this together. We're going to be marching for 27 miles. So please, everyone who's behind the stage, come on up, come around. Those, if we can stay distance so we can get this going. The respect for music has to be key because we wouldn't be here without it. And so thank you. Let's give it up for our music leaders as they take us into this time.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen. This little light of mine. So we're gonna do it a little bit differently, but we're gonna get started just warming up. I'm sure some of y'all might know this. I'm sure it's maybe sung over there somewhere. Mine. I'm gonna let it shine. What? This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All right, so now here's what we're gonna do now. So it's in this fight for 15. I'm gonna let it shine. All right. I'm not gonna go up as high. I'm gonna take this verse. I'm gonna change its key. And all right. In this fight for 15, I'm gonna let it shine. Ready? In this fight for 15, I'm gonna let it shine. In this fight for 15, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All right, now Reverend Stephanie, she's gonna take over the next verse.
So this verse, in our fight for voting rights, I'm gonna let it shine. In our fight for voting rights, I'm gonna let it shine. In our fight for voting rights, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Go back to the first. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. One more verse.
So this one, in the filibuster. Think y'all can do it?
In the filibuster, I'm gonna let it shine. In the filibuster, I'm gonna let it shine. In the filibuster, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine,
Come on.
I'm gonna let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
All night.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. The last verse in this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine. In this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine. In this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. One more time. In this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine. In this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine. In this march for justice, we're gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Woo!
Amen. Your spirit's feeling lifted? Yeah, you ready for one? We got one more. Yes, we're practicing these movement songs, right? So this next one is really beautiful and really simple. It's everybody has a right to live. And we're just going to do the chorus, all right? And so here's how it works. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to live. You ready? You think you got it? You ready? Let's all stand up then. Come on. As you're able. As you're able. 1, go. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to live. You know what everybody else has a right to? They have a right to vote. Right? All right, let's sing it. Ready? Everybody's got a right to vote. Everybody's got a right to vote. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to vote. I want to hear you sing it. I want to hear Reverend Stephanie sing it.
Everybody has a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Woo-hoo!
And give it up for Tebow on the drums, coming to us from San Antonio, Texas.
Thank you.
Amen.
Let's give it up, give it up. Good afternoon. We're going to close with a litany here. My name is Rob Stevens. I'm the National Political Director for Repairs of the Breach. This is all right. And with the Poor People's Campaign as well. I've been with the movement since 2010, before Moral Monday started, and just thrilled. The feeling here in Texas is palpable, that there's something going on. It feels the same way it did in 2013 when we launched Moral Mondays, that went from 17 people in the state capitol at the beginning of the summer to over 1,000 people being arrested at the state capitol around voting rights by the end of the summer, the largest sustained state campaign of civil disobedience that we've found so far in history. For this final one, we have 8 clergy faith leaders to come and read it, and we're going to ask everyone that's able to come in this inner circle, especially those who are marching in the clergy, to lay hands on, we're not going to lay hands, we're going to put up hands. So if everyone behind could come in this circle, everyone from way back, come on in as we close out with your mask on with this prayer. And is Reverend Liz? Just want you to be a part of this prayer to come on in. And the clergy, if you would come on and just be behind, and we'll come up in order. You should have the order already. So prayer looks very different for all of us. It is not just when you go into a closet and put your head down and get dark and talk with God. Prayer is that. But it's also, as Abraham Heschel said, Rabbi Heschel, after the Selma to Montgomery march, said, I went to Selma and I marched with my feet. I marched with my feet, he sure did, and I prayed with my feet. And so we take this time seriously in interfaith peace. We are interfaith and people not of faith, but we decided a long time ago that we weren't going to release faith to the extremists. That wanted to give up one of our greatest tools and who we are, because it has been so misused and abused by people to hurt people. That's no reason to let them have it. But that faith is going to be a piece of it, and actually the deeper we go in is actually a place where more and more people are welcome who aren't even subscribers to the exact same faith. So as we go into this, make this prayer your own. And as you go into this, when you walk into any sort of action like tomorrow, you want to have in your heart why you're there. As Reverend Barber says, we all have to be there for our own liberation. This is not charity. You have to work that out tonight, that you're going there for your own liberation. But then think about the communities and the groups that you're marching for, who you're there for, the people that are being hurt by the filibuster, the people that are being hurt because we have a racist immigration system that's tearing families apart still, that people are still in cages. People are being hurt because they can't afford, you can't afford to have a house or rent in any place in the U.S. on minimum wage, that the richest planet on earth. The place that has health care is dependent on whether you have a job or not. The only a developed country with an economy like ours that does that, instead of healthcare being based on whether you are a human being. So think about that. Bring those stories, because tomorrow people will come up to you, media will come up to you, and in the weeks to come, or in the days to come, and even on Saturday, and say, why are you here? And you don't want to, be confused. So that's the moment we're going into. That's why we have mass meetings. I'll do one thing, and then we're going to start. We ran into some trouble with mass meetings in El Paso, Beto, last year as we were canvassing, because about a few hours into our canvass, I realized everyone thought I was inviting them to Catholic Mass. We don't have that quite as much in North Carolina, so we try to make a mass meeting in the tradition that Reverend Gray knows a lot about from Progressive National Baptist Convention of the Civil Rights Movement, that you always had a meeting at night, no matter how tired you were. And we are going to have a meeting. We're going to do a digital meeting some nights. It'll be on Zoom. But you always have a meeting to come back and to be together, because this is about more than any one of us. It's about all of us. And so as we open here, and y'all will have a part. Y'all's part is somebody's hurting our family. It's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Can you say that with me? Somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. From our holy scriptures and the foundational values in our religious traditions, it is clear. There is a divine mandate: do justice, protect the rights of the poor and dispossessed, walk humbly with our Creator. 151 years ago, the 15th Amendment was born in the ashes of a bloody civil war, an insurrection driven by the forces of corporate greed and chattel slavery, fueled and bounded by white supremacy and religious nationalism. Section 1 declares the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state. Last time I checked, Texas is a state. On account of race, color, or previous condition of certitude. But Section 2 says something else about where power lies. It declares that the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. What we're asking for is constitutional. What they're using is non-constitutional in the filibuster. But in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. The truth must be told. My brothers, my sisters, my cousins, my siblings, that time is now. So we say together, somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
Today we gather at Borderlands, the land inhabited by people named Manso, Suma, Yumano, Mescalero Apache, Tiguan, and countless others unnamed. The history of modern nations pales in comparison to generations who were here before. We remember on this land families torn apart by colonizers from Europe, often done in the name of religion. And so we say together, somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
We remember how kidnapped, enslaved Africans were used to labor on stolen land in European colonies. We remember the Anglo-American slave owners who occupied the lands in the 1800s in an attempt to spread slavery into a nation that had already abolished slavery. So we say together, somebody is hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
We remember the United States government invaded Mexico and took for its own the states we now call the Southwest. We remember and acknowledge the United States became a world power based on the resources stolen from Mexico and the indigenous people on these lands. For 400 years, this nation has been built on a national pastime of separating families. So we say together, somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
Today, we stand as truth tellers, witnessing to the pain and suffering caused by the use of the filibuster to block living wages, voting rights, health care, immigration reform, criminal justice reform, and more. So we turn to the prophets of old from the sacred text of the world's religions who proclaimed words of enduring truth. Del profeta Jeremías, eso es lo que manda el Señor. Hagan lo que es justo y derecho. Rescaten a los que están oprimidos. Hagan nada mal, ni violencia a los que no tienen padres, ni madres, ni a las viudas. Nada de sangre inocente en esta tierra. We say together,
somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
As for the helpless men, women, and children who have neither the strength nor the means to escape, God will pardon them. Surely God pardons and forgives. Those who migrate for the sake of God shall find many places for refuge in the land in the great abundance. We say together, somebody is hurting our family, and it has gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me. And we say together, somebody's hurting our family and has gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
As people of conscience and leaders from faith traditions, proclaiming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we cannot stand for this desecration in the name of our country and in violation of our Constitution. This is not a matter of Republican or Democrat, left or right. This is about the deep moral center and the very soul of our nation. Our sacred texts are clear. Our traditions speak loudly. The ancestors are about our shoulders. Our demands are grounded in the most basic religious teachings and guaranteed in the Constitution. It is time for a Georgetown-to-Austin moral march for democracy.
All right, so this is where you all come in again. We're going to do some call and response, because as we pray with our feet, we also lift our voices loud so that all can hear. So please repeat after me. We demand, to end the filibuster. We demand, to end the filibuster. We demand to pass all provisions of the For the People Act. We demand to pass all provisions of the For the People Act. We demand to fully restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We demand to fully restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We demand to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. We demand to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. And we demand permanent protections, dignity and respect for all 11 million undocumented immigrants. We demand permanent protections, dignity and respect for all 11 million undocumented immigrants. And so it was with this that I want to charge us. We come together to consecrate this march and to put our blessing into those who will march and those who will march in spirit. And we remember the great words of the prophet Isaiah. He says, if you get rid of unfair practices and policies, like the filibuster, if you quit blaming victims, you quit gossiping about other people, if you're generous with the hungry, you start giving yourselves to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness. Your shadowed lives will be bathed in sunlight, like we have. I will show you where to go. I'll give you a full life in the emptiest of places. Firm muscles to march, strong bones to hold you up. You'll be like a well-watered garden, a gurgling spring that never runs dry. You'll use the old rubble of past lives to build anew. We hold up those that went before. You'll get to rebuild the foundations out of our past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything, who can restore ruin, who can rebuild and renovate, who can repair the breach and make the community, this democracy, livable again. And so go with those strong bones, those firm muscles, that well-watered garden within you, and march, and march, and march forward together. Forward together. Forward together. Go in peace and in power.